Sileti.
Sileti, not Salati.
This is Salati?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait, which one?
Yours.
Oh yes, mine is Salati.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So what are your qualifications?
I am a major of development studies and mass communication.
Okay. And what is the department that you're working in?
This is the information and communications department.
Okay.
Yeah.
What is your position?
I'm the head of communications.
Okay.
But you can also refer to me as
Information officer.
okay.
Okay. So generally, what is your comment on Zambian governance system?
Okay. First of all, you realize that Zambia's governance system has changed from a one-party state to a multi-party state. So what I can say is that since 1991, it has been a learning phase for the multi-party democracy government. In that they were trying to put in systems that they could see whether they were workable for a Zambian system. So from 1991 to about 2000 was a learning phase, and then afterwards they tried to change a number of things. They tried to decentralize things. They tried to increase the number of cabinet ministers, and they like to see whether the governance process could help the person on the ground do something, with their lives. So I could still say it's at its infant stage in terms of implementation, policy formulation, and I think just the running of the well-being of the country. You cannot compare it to economies like South Africa. You cannot compare it with economies like that of the United States of America and maybe Great Britain. We're still on a learning phase, and I think there's room for improvement in terms of the governance system itself. Okay. It is more centralized than decentralized.
Okay. Yeah. You said they were trying to put into place systems. Do you think these systems are working?
On one front, one would say they are working. On another front, you'd say they are not working. What I mean by this is, for instance, you look at the poverty reduction strategic programs. One would argue that up to now, more than 80% of Zambians are still poor. Why? Does it mean that the foreign direct investments policies that the government put in were not working? Does it mean that the employment strategies were not working? Maybe it simply means that there's more that we need to do because the governance system has to be more centralized. Maybe if we decentralize it, like the way we have now the amended constitution, that gives more authority to the local government. And by that it looks at the mayor to be now the overall, the in charge of a particular district. So maybe in that process it will help the word getting to the people, facilities getting to the people, because now people will be able to air out things and then they may be solved. And like where you wait for Lusaka to react to issues of Shamombo, to issues of Northwestern Province, to issues of Nakonde. So with that, that's what I meant when I said it was it's infant, and they were trying to put in strategies that would work for the betterment of people's lives. Yeah.
So you said on the positive side, and you also mentioned that on the negative side. What would be on the negative side of that?
The negative side would be you're looking at a country that is trying to build up its democracy. You're looking at a country that is trying to alleviate poverty from the people. Then you look at, for example, the number of the cabinet ministers. One would argue, why would you need all those people when you have less resources? Why would you need a lot of members of parliament when you have less resources? Perhaps it's to curtail the number so that money is churned out to other necessities. Yeah? Why would you still be using the colonial buildings when you can actually build new infrastructure that can suit people? The roads themselves, the road networks, if you look at them, they were never meant for 15 million people. They were meant for less than 2 million people. Right now, as I'm talking to you, it's very, very, very bad. You can't really say this is Lusaka. You can't differentiate Lusaka from these other downgraded towns because the drainage system, when it rains, it's very bad. When it's peak hour, people are always fighting to get a space on the road. So this is what we're trying to say, that maybe when they were thinking less, but now they need to put in plans for the future. So as they grow, they'll begin to realize that they need to re-strategize. They need now to invest in the future. And investing in the future is having sustainable economic, social, and cultural development.
You also mentioned decentralization. Should I assume that you still think that we're very much centralized despite the introduction of the decentralization policy and all the efforts that have been made to ensure that there's decentralization?
Yeah, I would say yes to a very large extent, because this is the first time that we're going to actually try it out and see whether it's going to work. In most cases, it was central government that was doing everything. And you know that central government is based here. And so it meant that every decision that had to be made was from here in Lusaka. As long as the ministry is in Lusaka, then the decision from Shangombo will have to wait for that decision to be made here. For officers to travel from there, they would have to wait for an approval to come from Lusaka for them to travel. For them to implement anything, it had to mean that they have to approve. All the budgets were approved from here. Yes, the central government here will still maintain some level of control, but with a decentralization policy in place, it will mean people will have to decide what is best for them. We should not decide what is best for them, because they themselves understand what is needed in that particular place. And this is why right now, wherever you go, people are encouraging results-based monitoring and evaluation. Why? It's because it should start with people and end with people. Yeah. So the people themselves understand their problems, let them govern themselves at that particular forum. If they need help, that is when another person would come and say, this is how it's been working here. Maybe if you try out this strategy, it might work. Yeah.
Looking back 10 years ago, what do you think has changed over the years, aside from, in terms of governance, aside from the multi-party, from one party to the multi-party, and also from the number of MPs increasing? What else do you think has changed in the governance system?
Okay. I think the separation of powers has sort of worked. That is, the judiciary, the legislature, the media, and the likes. You can see that there is some level of separation there. Yeah, that could be a plus for them. Two, they've also realized that in some places you need administrative presence. For instance, there were some pronouncements made about Mpika. Mpika is actually the biggest district that we have. But where you have the so-called Boma located at a very far place, and then you have people needing help in another far area, why don't you put another district there so that people can have easy access to the services that they require? So that is another plus for them. Another plus is now in the amended constitution, where the mayor takes charge of administrative issues. You realize that in most cases, mayors had very few opportunities in terms of how they work, because the district commissioners and the mayors sort of clashed. And again, with the lacunas in the constitution, I'll tell you that they'll still clash, because what will the DC do now that the mayor has more authority to control and get people reporting to him in the district? Yeah. In as much as there's been these little changes, we just need to work on our document, which is a national constitution. And believe you me, once that document is straightforward and easy to follow, the decentralization policy plus the governmental aspect of things will move in smoothly. If you look at the manifestos and the plans that the government has. Yeah. So the other thing that has changed is, at least again on the political front, we've seen that a lot of political parties have come on the scene, and people are able to express themselves. Women participation as well in the governance issues has also increased, which led to the Ministry of Gender, women also having higher posts, and of course the Vice President now. So in a government scenario, that would be a very big change, because for a long time we've not had a very big voice on the government structure of any political party or any government that was formed here in Zambia. Yeah.
Of course, because in democracy we say that the people are at the center of the rule, would you say this applies to Zambia?
Yes and no.
Okay. Let's explain.
Let me begin with a yes. Yes, because we're able to express ourselves. Yes, we are free. There's peace in Zambia. And yes, because it is our right. We have a right to a number of things. And right now I'm talking to you because you have the right to come into my office and exercise your freedom of questioning me. But no, because we still are way behind in terms of democracy. What do I mean by this? The democratic tenets of any country are bordered on freedom. And freedom has a number of issues. One, the access to information. Zambia still lags behind in terms of implementing the access to information. Two, association. The ended elections are a shame to me because some people were actually forced to attend rallies by cadres. Yeah? And unlike that, if people are not expressing their own free will, they are meant or forced to do certain things, and you can't say that we have attained a democratic status. You can be peaceful, but if people are forced to vote for someone who they do not want to vote for, then that doesn't work. And also regional voting. Regional voting is also a sign of backwardness because there's no way you can be voting on a face and not issues. You need to analyze issues and vote on issues and not on a face. So all these things, they are a negative to what I can call the free will of the people. Up to now, some people are still being looked for in some of these areas of the country why they voted the other way around. Yeah.
Okay. What are the obstacles to democracy?
Lack of association and just the general well-being of the people. Because for me, I believe that when people have something on the table, when people have water, they've got shelter, then they'll be happy. They'll express themselves. Some people don't vote actually now in Zambia because they have lost hope. They always say politicians are the same. Yeah. So that is also another obstacle because they will just say it's a sheer waste of time to participate in what is democratically their right. Yeah. Mr. Dewey. Nili mu office niliko na bantu so nga mufuna bwera muzante.
Okay. So tell me what you know about the Zambian Access to Information Bill.
The forgotten bill. Okay. Yeah. All I can say is that the access to information before the Freedom of Information FOI has been there for over 14 years now. People have been crying for it. People have been seeking to have the access to information. But alas, there have been so many obstacles that have not made it possible for us to have the access to information. Some of which have been people saying it will deter people from having their own freedoms, like for instance politicians. It will make media people enter their bedrooms. Others say it will just give people so many powers and they will become unruly. There will be obscenity and then all those things and other issues that come with it. So basically, the access to information in Zambia as it is now is a failed project for the people of Zambia. They've not been granted that right. Yeah.
Do you think citizens should have access to information?
If citizens were granted a chance to have the access to information because it's their right, it will guarantee them the right to know. It will be very easy for them to walk into a government ministry and request, not the media, but the people. The access to information is not about the media. It's about the people having a chance to look at certain documents. How were these decisions arrived at? Where did the money go? How was it beneficial to me? Yeah. So given to the people will be in the know, and there will be no institutions like the Zambia Watchdog, which publishes materials that we've not seen. All these online publications that we see that are done in secret will not be there because people will already be in the know. And media will focus on issues. They will be researching for us to get information that we don't. So in short, it will end the aspect of people not being transparent, people not being accountable, because they know that people will be in the know each step of the way. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that's a yes from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What do you know about the process of coming up with a bill?
Well, it's basically starts with the people and the need for the bill itself. First of all, you see the gap, and then you would want to realize a way that is going to close up the gap. And the people realized that there was a gap here, and they wanted to be in the know. And believe you me, it is a very, very cardinal bill for any nation. Even places like Zimbabwe, we can certainly say they have the access to information, even when they're usually pushed on the other side. Uganda, Kenya, all these places, they saw the need that people should be in the know. If you're going to be a very good political party or government, you will need people to question you. You need checks and balances. There's no way you can be good until kingdom come. That doesn't happen. Even in your own home, when children see the need to talk to you, they will need to seek advice from someone, and they will table it. And this is how that process began. People saw the need for Zambia to have the access to information because they saw that there's rampant corruption. There's so much unaccountability when it comes to resources that are in the public domain. There's actually just no transparency in the system. So through that process, they thought, if we have this bill and it's passed into law, then someone can be accountable for what they're doing. Yeah.
Have you been involved in the process of coming up with the ATI bill?
Yes, very much.
Okay.
As it is, through the organization, we've made submissions on what we think or why we think it's important to have the access to information. For instance, one of the things that we talked about was what the access to information and what it does, what it entails. Yeah? So we talked about the need to have a government which is a duty bearer, giving the people the voice, and the voice is the access to information. Not really people just talking anyhow, but giving people the right to speak. Two, we thought it gives the power to the people to be self-monitors of their leaders. If they have access, even in parliament, if the opposition wants to question the government of the day through the access to information, I think there will be an exchange of information and information that will be cardinal. Because one day the opposition will be the government, and the same will happen to the other. Yeah.
Okay. Are you aware of anyone else who was involved in this process and how they were selected?
Yes. For instance, we are in a coalition of different non-governmental organizations, like-minded organizations that fight against either corruption, promotion of good governance, and these that deal with law and the like. So you look at their positioning and what they believe in, their vision and mission, then you come up with that group to help each voice have weight, so that when you speak with one voice. So you have Transparency International Zambia, you have Caritas Zambia, you also have the Post Press Freedom Association, you also have MISA Zambia, you have JCTR, Action Aid, even GIZ at some point our sponsors in trying to sensitize the community on the need to have the access to information when you're doing the signature campaign. Yeah.
You mentioned coalitions. Which other coalitions were formed in this process?
You realize Zambia has been going through a number of issues. One of them has been the constitution making process. The other one has been on the referendum. The other one has been on the access to information. So mostly similar organizations, or shall I say like-minded organizations, will be the same ones found. For instance, Operation Young Vote. They deal with issues to do with voting, the issues of democracy, the issues of corruption and accountability. So in a way, you still work with the same institution to foster other agendas forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there is the Access to Information Coalition that I've heard about. Was there any other that was formed?
As far as I'm concerned, that is the one that exists up to now. Charles. I'm still being interviewed. I'm coming, yes. It's a student on access to information. Yeah, yeah, it's for her dissertation. I'll be coming shortly.
Okay, how responsive was the government to the views of the other actors that were part of this process?
The activists?
Actors that were part of this process?
Well, government position has been twofold. It's sort of been like, I have done my part, the other part that has remained is with the other person. And in this, I'm talking about the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Information, plus the big head who's the president. So the president is saying, okay, as long as anything is progressive in Zambia, shall be passed into law. Yeah. Then the other ones are saying, I'm still studying it. The other one says, I've already completed. Minister of Justice said they had gone through the bill and passed it on to the Ministry of Information. The Ministry of Information was not in understanding why people were pushing for the access to information. They were saying, we do not understand because we do not read. Yeah, so it wouldn't have worked in the subsequent parliamentary sittings that were in the previous government. Yeah, so they were saying they will only table this bill in the coming sitting, which we hope is this 12th session of the National Assembly. So for the past 13 years, I'll tell you, the response from government has been not so good.
Within the coalition of the ATI coalition, was there a situation where some of the organizations that were part of it had more say than others?
I would say yes and no. Why? To some extent, it depends on, I think, the area and the crowd that follows that particular organization. MISA are like media oriented, so you would expect them to take lead. JCT are the same, TI is the same. Why? These are like well-known organizations. Yeah, even a sentence of mentioning about the ATI, it might make headline, and so same applies to these others like Operation Young Vote and the like. It all depended on how they were being covered by the media. But I would proudly say that, yes, we've had like our secretariat, which has been JCTI. Operation Young Vote has enjoyed good coverage of the media. MISA Zambia the same, Transparency International Zambia the same. But since MISA deals more with information and the media, I would say it was more pronounced because they made it like their baby to ensure that wherever they go, they talked about the access to information because they saw the need that we needed to push this agenda forward. Yeah.
So would you say there were no power struggles within the actual access to information or conflicts about it?
No, not this time around. I don't think there was. Maybe when it was in its stage called the freedom of information. But when it changed to the access to information, I think the coalition sat down, put in structures and ensured that everybody adhered to the structures. I wouldn't know that other organizations at any wrangles because we are part of the coalition. For me, I saw it as smooth running because whatsoever activity that was planned by the coalition worked according to the plans that were set.
You keep referring to media. Do you think that may have influenced the government's view on this bill as well? Because they're mainly concerned about the media rather than the people?
Since the bill was introduced then by the minister then was Tarina Lumango, was information minister some time back. There was this thing that was attached to the freedom of information. Everybody that you asked talked about the freedom of information because they thought it came as a result of the media that was anti-government. And by anti-government, that meant any media organization that was not public. And to be specific, most people thought that the access to information was being propagated by the Post newspapers. So by then, the Post newspaper used to be very critical of government. And so they feared that if they gave the Zambian people the power they were in a way giving the media the power to scrutinize the politicians. Not government, but the politicians. And who are those politicians? Those that seemingly were being followed in terms of issues of misappropriation, application, and corruption in general. So there has been this laissez-faire attitude on not granting the people of Zambia the chance to have the access to information passed into law, because they fear that it's the media actually that were propagating it and not the people of Zambia.
Okay.
Yeah.
What would you say are the main requirements to enact this bill?
For me, it's just one thing. We all need to accept that the access to information is not for the media but for the people of Zambia. Until such a time when we all agree that it's for the benefit of all of us, we shall be going round and round in circles. It shall not take us anywhere. Believe you me. Trust me, as it is now, all the people that are in parliament, maybe the new ones may not understand, but the people that we've dealt with, they will even tell you, yes, we know about this, yes, we know about this, tell us something new. So the new thing is that people need to own it and not the media. And this is why you're seeing civil society pushing the agenda. See, media has taken a backseat. They need now the people to speak. And this is why we did the picketing just before the end of the last sitting of Parliament. Yeah.
In your opinion, which are the important characteristics of governance that would support the existence of this bill?
Would you rephrase that question?
What are the important aspects of governance, the type of governance that we have that would support the existence or promote the existence of this bill and even the implementation of this bill? Okay.
In most government issues or governance issues, people always talk about the open door policy. I believe if all the departments in a government had an open door policy, with an exception of the military, yes, they can tell us that they've purchased these things since they don't need to tell us their base and their monies. But I believe the biggest thing is the open door policy. And if you heard the pronouncements that were made in Parliament at the opening of the 12th session, the President said, we have nothing to fear. So if they have nothing to fear, let them grant the people of Zambia the access to information through the open door policy. It's the best governance strategy. Once you have an open door policy, it means everybody will provide checks and balances on you, including the opposition. Yeah.
How do you think the current and the past regimes of governance have influenced the existence of the bill?
It's very difficult to actually tell whether we're in the past or in the current regime. If you ask many people, they'll tell you it's MMD reincarnate. Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah. People that have followed politics from 1991 to 2015, they'll tell you that it's like MMD reincarnate with a mix of Unipine. They've not really seen a change from the MMD to the Patriotic Front. Because if you look at most of the people now that are in the Patriotic Front, they weren't served in the MMD. Some of them were so-called diehards of MMD, others served as vice presidents, others commerce ministers. Yeah, so if you look at like half of the cabinet, it's still like very pretty much MMD. So traits are not different. Maybe what will be different will be maybe the president. You would say, yeah, the president is different. But the governance structure hasn't really changed much. Actually, now it has bloated because of an increase of the constituencies from 150 to 156. Yeah. So meaning there's been more burden on government to pay out those increases. There's also been more burden for government to now diversify funds from these fewer districts that they've had to now the increased number of districts. So it's more like there's already something existing, just add on another problem onto a problem. So that's what I would say.
Okay. So what would you say was UNIP's stance on access to information then?
You know, many people actually argue that the current trend is actually worse than it was in the olden days. For instance, I'll give you a very practical example. There was total media blackout in terms of the way they handled the ruling party and the opposition political parties in the just ended 2016 election. Like, people would actually not know whether these political parties exist. They would only know that they exist when they've done something wrong or they've said something negative. Anything that was positive done by the opposition was not covered by our public media organization, which we know that they reach to the poor of the poorest. Yeah. So that in itself is undemocratic. Yeah. And I would also say that generally, if you look at the political scenario of the country, it leaves so much to be said, because the people that you expect to be in the politics and taking the forefront are actually taking the back seats. Technocrats are never given a chance to speak out. Politicians always think they know best, or what's best for our country. And if we're not careful, people will shun away from politics completely. Technocrats will take their back seat, and the country might be led into other issues that we may not recover from. We might just go back to these issues called the hippie completion points and the likes. Yeah.
So you mentioned accountability before, and how important it is in relation to the access to information bill. What sort of information do you think that citizens should be able to access in the event that the bill is enacted?
Okay. Key to this will be one, look at how the medical fraternity operates. People should be able to know why they have not had the essential drugs, what has caused the shortages, what has made UTH to be overcrowded. When you make people understand, I think you will not have any unrest taking place, because they will know that this has happened because we have no resources. Two, the civil service. Up to now, they do not know what makes their salaries delay. So someone should be able to explain to them, okay, this time around we've had deficits, maybe budgetary deficits. As a result, this is why you're getting money instead of the 30th, you're getting it on the 45th. Yeah? Thirdly, the youths. You should be able to explain why you're not creating employment for the youths. They should be able to understand that the environment as it stands, maybe we dependent on copper so much, and copper is not doing fine. Hence, it cannot provide back to the country so that it takes us into developmental issues. Tell them we need to change maybe and go and look at agriculture. Maybe when we have agriculture, people will have inputs will have land, and land will be able to help them till, and at the end of the day, they'll be able to grow something and sell at the end of the day. So all that information, plus why there's delay in having farmer inputs, and all those things. If you have all these things told to the people, believe you me, a government that does that, I think, can even stay for more than 2 days. That I can assure you. Yeah.
Would you have used this information, and how would you use it?
If I had this information, it would be very good for me. Actually, it would make my life simple. Because my role is to promote transparency, accountability, and integrity. And I certainly believe that for us to have a better Zambia, we need to have people that we can trust and institutions of integrity. So if I have an open government, it's very easy for me to communicate on behalf of government what their government is doing, what the lapses are, and what they need to work on. I would not use it to injure anyone, because I know that they are being open and they're sharing that information with me because they want what's best for the people. Yeah.
Do you think there's room for abuse of this information?
Well, to every rule or any constitution that you have of any country, there are always those clauses that speak against certain things. And I'll tell you this, subsequent democracies like the United States of America think, when they look at them, people think that they are unruly. People are free to do anything. They have the access to information. And do you know how much is given to the media? Just 3% of the access to information. More is on the people. Yeah. So I believe if the mechanism put in place and it is drafted in a way, like I looked at it, 80% of it is okay. I don't think anyone would abuse it, because it strictly says you can only get information from a public office, not from someone's home. I do not think it can be abused. I think it can actually promote openness. Why? If you're open, You yourself, if you're open, Ms. Salat, it means you will avoid all the hearsays that people talk about you. Yeah, it will be very easy for you to walk with a head high because you know that everybody knows everything. Of course, not everything, even from your home, but from your work. Yeah, even the presidents that we're looking at right now. As I leave office as a president, it will be very easy for my successor to follow my records because the file will be there for them to see. And there will be no need for me to go to court to explain why there was this misappropriation, application, corruption, and all these things. The access to information is key for the development of this country. And I believe, to a large extent, there will be no misuse of this bill. In short, it will encourage credibility. And it will make some newspapers, some online publications, and all these tete-a-tetes that go on to disappear. Yeah.
In relation to accountability, do you think that the legislation is performing its role of accountability?
It's very tricky to say yes and no, but they are trying. In an African setup, they are trying. But maybe on a global scale, there's still room for improvement. Yeah, you wouldn't take it away from them. They are trying, but there's need to seal up the loopholes. Yeah.
Are you aware of any measures of accountability that are in place in case that there's abuse of office of funds, or what is there to not penalize but to discipline an official that is caught?
Okay.
Yeah.
The Public Accounts Committee often calls the managers of these ministries, and by managers I mean the permanent secretaries. They are made accountable when you realize that there's a variation in the budget, so they are asked to explain. Misapplication means you need to be disciplined. This is why you find someone is moved from the Ministry of Health, they move them to local government, so that either if they are demoted from a seemingly bigger ministry or a smaller ministry, it might teach them a lesson. And to some extent, from the speech, which I hope it will work, the president said he will not take time to let people misapply funds. He will use his powers to get rid of people that are not ready to work with him and do what he says should be done. Yeah.
So what are your recommendations for moving forward on the bill?
Okay. For us, I think the message has always been simple. Yeah? We need political will. Yeah? We need strong political will for us to have the access to information passed into law. Government needs to play its part. If it's for the people and ruled by the people, I think it's high time that this bill is given. The other recommendation is the Ministry of Information should give a voice to the people of Zambia. Let them table the bill into Parliament. Let's give it a chance. Let the people scrutinize it and see where it goes. Because the politicians themselves, if they don't realize this, they need to take part in this because this is for them as well. When they're campaigning, they should be campaigning from an informed position. Most people campaign out of ignorance. But with the access to information, they will have data that maybe will help them win the election because they will know what they're talking about. You may be talking about the shortage of milling when milling is in abundance. Yeah, you may be talking about road infrastructure when the country has good road network. So our recommendation is that grant the people the access to information because it will improve either the politicians' own credibility because they will be involved in these initiatives to promote and implement the access to information. And by implementing it means you are open, you are transparent, you are a person of integrity. Yeah? And believe you me, a successful ATI law is one that works both on paper and both in practice. Yeah? And in order to achieve this, it's just us creating a culture that promotes transparency, accountability, and integrity. And we need the right information for it. Yeah. So this has to be addressed quickly. People just need to stop thinking that it is a danger to them. They should start thinking that it's actually ammunition for them to improve their own lives.
Okay.
I talk too much.
Lastly, you mentioned that the bill is supposed to go to Parliament in this next sitting, but looking at the comment of the PS Shinakamori, yes? Means that, yes, looking at his comment the other day, do you think that is realistic to hope that it will go?
Not all hope is lost. We will re-strategize and see how best we work. Sometimes, maybe this could be off record. They brought him back to the Ministry of Information so that he tries to squash our chances of getting access to information. With or without him. In a way, Zambia will have what it desires because Zambia is bigger than any other individual. Yeah. So with the comment, it might work for advantage or a disadvantage because it is room for advocacy. Yeah.
But that is all from me. Unless you have any questions for me.
Just have the noise of my voice.
Thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Is that a master's thesis?
Yes.
Okay. So when do you finish?
December.
December. Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Yeah.
Thank you. It's good to catch you before you leave town. I don't know what I would have done had I not.
I would have still shared with you. Yeah.